Greetings, fellow Watford fans. Omar here, and it's time for the YouOrns 10-minute take on Watford 2, Queen's Park Rangers 3. It was that kind of game at the Vic as Watford struggled in various moments of the game to get themselves composed and get themselves disciplined. And Queen's Park Rangers were patient and steady, and they pounced when the moment was right. They played a high-line Queen's Park Rangers today, and we thought, at least I thought, that the manager for Queen's Park Rangers was being naive, but he wasn't. He was playing a very good waiting game. Watford, time and time again, failed to beat the offside trap, and the passing just not crisp enough or quick enough, and the runners offside, like Ismail Assar and João Pedro. He did get himself into the game. I'll talk about that in a few moments' time. But Watford were the livelier team to begin this game, but unfortunately just could not find the glue to stick to that plan, as Queen's Park Rangers had some various moments of counter-attacking football themselves. And it was in a counter-attacking moment that Queen's Park Rangers got their first goal. It was a shot that really was not going anywhere, but it took a wicked deflection off of Sierralta in the Watford defense and right past Daniel Backman, who was caught flat-footed. Queen's Park Rangers then, against the run of play, taking a 1-0 lead in the first half. But Watford tried and huffed and puffed, and they did get back into the game. But for Watford, a difficult one, although it was Ken Sema who got the ball into the back of the net, his first this season for Watford. Watford would soon trail again in the first half, and it was a goal coming in that gave them the lead, Queen's Park Rangers, yet again. I mean, this was a game where everything was topsy-turvy and unsettled in the Watford back line, and they got carved open for a 2-1 Queen's Park Rangers lead at the break. So Watford, a lot of refurbishing to do in this contest. In the second half, there certainly was some retooling. Manai had gone off injured in the first half with a hamstring pull. I think it was his right hamstring. And in the second half, Watford looked like they were much the pluckier side. They dominated the first 5 or 6 minutes, an onslaught on the Queen's Park Rangers pitch and in the side on their side of the pitch, I should say. But they did not really benefit until maybe 6 minutes in, João Pedro scoring a very good goal. Well worked. Espria was very much involved. He was a sub, and he came into the game and had some real influence. Came into the first half, but in the second half, he grew into the game and was involved in the build-up. It was a 4-forward line. It was actually 4-2-4 at one point for Rob Edwards, which is not his idealized mode. He's more of a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-1-2 man, is Rob Edwards, but he played a 4-2-4 for much of the first part of that second half, and it worked. João Pedro pouncing on a loose ball in a mix-up where there was a handball, by the way, by one of the Rangers players, and then he smashed it, did João Pedro, into the back of the Queen's Park Rangers net. At 2-2 it was, and then Watford, in a key moment there, had to go forward. The game was in the balance, and they really should have kicked on from there, Watford, but they did not. They sat back a little bit. Queen's Park Rangers took the game by the scruff of the neck, and they scored their third goal, the winning goal of the day. It was Albert Adoma scoring for QPR, and he's the man that scored for QPR to win the game against Watford at the Vic a couple of seasons ago in the Championship. He did it again at the very same end of the pitch as well. Albert Adoma coming on to hurt Watford and to give them their first defeat of this season in the Championship. Watford today, I think, were guilty of a number of things. Obviously, had players playing out of position, but of course, that is not the fault of Rob Edwards. Certainly, people at the front office really should be paying a lot more attention now as this transfer window is about to shut in the next few days. But there were lots of other issues. The defending, I said, was awful. The midfield play of Kayembe today, not good enough. Kayembe has been a very good player otherwise this season, but today, not one of his better games. A bit more, he needed a bit more fight today from him. I think he was rather ill-disciplined in some cases, and his passing was not quite as sharp today from Kayembe. So he had an off day, did Kayembe. But I think the biggest problems, obviously, aside from the defense, is what we've got in the channels going forward. The right wing back position is desperately lacking at this point. Gaspar just is not cutting it, is he? And so we are very concerned about what's going to be happening there. Gaspar over Laird. It's incredible because Ethan Laird plays for Queen's Park Rangers, and Watford had a chance to get Ethan Laird, and they didn't. And they decided instead, for whatever reason, to go with a man who is significantly older in Mario Gaspar instead of going with Ethan Laird. Now, of course, money considerations and financial sensitivities of Watford, I think, govern those kinds of decisions. But we see now where some of these decisions have not paid off, at least at the moment. Mario Gaspar, at the minute, just not good enough for Watford as far as I'm concerned. But the other problems today was in the finishing again. We had some problems going forward in the finishing department. There's some good moments, some lively moments. I thought Ken Summer had a very good game indeed. I thought João Pedro had a very good game as well, but just not enough clinical finishing. There was a moment for João Pedro almost scored from the halfway line, or just about maybe 40 yards out or so, and it just hit the bounce and hit the crossbar, and it looked like it was going to be another wonder goal, but not quite today. But overall, the finishing was not good enough once again. Passing was not good enough going forward once again. Key areas of the pitch where crucial decisions need to be made going forward just did not come off well for Watford. And Queen's Park Rangers ended up frustrating Watford. It was indeed a frustrating afternoon at the Vic, and Watford just could not get the job done. Although I think today we have to be also fair. The referee was just an abysmal shambles. And the thing is, the referee is actually a Luton Town fan. I think that is an absolute disgrace. And the EFL really needs to be looking at what they're doing here and inquire into that, because there should be some kind of inquiry into how that managed to happen. You can't have a Luton Town fan, and he actually is a Luton Town fan, this referee, David Stroud, whatever his name is. I think it's David Stroud. For him to be even reffing this game today at the Vic was an absolute disgrace. Can you imagine? Can you just imagine having a referee who is a Celtic fan going into the game, Rangers versus somebody at Rangers home ground, whether it's Hampden Park, I don't know where Rangers, what they are, it's not Hampden Park, wherever Rangers home matches get played. Ibrox, is it still Ibrox Park? Just imagine having a Celtic fan reffing their Rangers home game. I mean, that wouldn't be allowed up in Scotland. I mean, the Rangers would absolutely have a fit with that, and their fans wouldn't allow it. You can't have that. You can't have an Everton fan reffing a game at Anfield. That's not going to happen. And no one would accept that. So why is a Luton Town fan reffing a game at Watford? Why is that even allowed to happen? No, that's despicable. Again, the EFL's got to look at that. That referee today was an absolute disgrace. I mean, he was awful. And it's predictably, when you've got a Luton Town fan reffing a Watford game at the Vic, what do you expect? It's just a terrible referee. The EFL really needs to look at that. I really think they do. And I'm being deadly serious here. The EFL's got a lot of work to do. And that is a disgrace. You can't have a Luton Town fan reffing our games. What is that about? Disgraceful, honestly. But look, the referee actually is not to blame today, even though Ido Kayembe's blaster, absolute exquisite finish, should have stood. That should have been 3-3. Maybe he is to blame for that, because clearly there was no offside. Did you see the offside? Where was the offside? Where was the offside in that game where Kayembe hit that thunderbolt that went into the top right corner? Where on earth was the offside? If this was a Premier League match, it is not. But if it was, I think VAR would have clearly overturned that. That there was no. I mean, are you saying that Saw interfered? No one gave any decision. There was no whistle blown until after the shot went in. So very, very dodgy indeed from the linesman. Very dodgy from the referee. But look, I don't think overall, even though that should have been clearly a goal, I don't think that's where Watford lost this game. Watford lost this game, in my view, about 10 minutes into the second half, where I think, as I was saying earlier, they started to retreat, did not continue to crack on when they needed to crack on, when they should have cracked on, and when they should have piled on all the pressure and kept up the intensity on a Queen's Park Rangers side that looked nervy in the second half, or rather, looked very wobbly in the first 10 minutes of that second half, looked very uncertain. And that was the moment where Watford needed to keep the pressure on them and go ahead and get that third goal and take a 3-2 lead. They didn't. And as a result, they did not sustain that intensity. And as a result, Queen's Park Rangers were able to take the body blow of conceding the equalizer, and they went down the field, and Adoma, just a few minutes later, not too much longer later, hit that winning goal and carved open that Watford defense, which really looks creaky now, very amateurish. Who knows when Courtney House will get to play? Who knows when we'll see if we'll see Jack Stevens come to the Vic. We still have a few more days left of this transfer window. And Watford fans, at least some Watford fans that I've been speaking with today, very anxious and very upset, by the way, at the owner. That is something that did not start just this season. There are some Watford fans continuing their discontent against the owner of this club. And certainly now with this transfer window, I think that could possibly increase depending upon what Watford do or don't do in these last few days of the transfer window. And I'll certainly be talking a lot more about that when the time comes at the middle of next week when that happens. Now, the other thing to think about here is the very important game next now. Watford will have to bounce back. Watford versus Middlesbrough. That is the game on Tuesday night at the Vic. That will be the 100th year anniversary of Watford at Vicarage Road. It remains to be seen what the mentality for that game will be like because it's a critical game now. Watford have now dropped 2 games in a row, one in the Carabao Cup, one in the Championship. Both of those games at the Vic. How are Watford going to react? That will be what we'll all be looking for on Tuesday. Final score again, however, from this game, a bitter pill to swallow for Watford. Watford 2, Queen's Park Rangers 3. This has been the YouOrns 10-minute take.